Dear students, job seekers and future professional managers, here I welcome you to one more video, and that will also help you in your campus interview. Now, let me remind you that the last video, or rather the first video on interview skills that we had, last one, that was titled actually the facing job interview, the basics to know, right? Now last week we discussed about very briefly, we didn't go into details of because it was the first video regarding the interview. So what we discussed was, in a nutshell, we discussed the entire gamut of interview, what you are required to know, right? This was actually an eye opener to all of you. Okay, now and slowly and steadily we will go into each of the aspects which we discussed in the first video in a greater detail. So in the last video what we discussed, now we briefly discussed about what to prepare for job interview in the three phases, that is before the interview, during the interview and after the interview. And also we had discussed very briefly, giving one or two few examples of different types of job interview questions that you are likely to get. Now here today what we do is, we will be discussing about the answering strategy of in a job interview. Okay, what strategies ideally you should adopt so that you perform well. Okay, now many times what happens in a job interview, how a candidate responds or answers is more important than what he or she answers. Okay, so how becomes more important than what? Now this is particularly so when a written test is already conducted and what you have said or what you have written rather is already tested. Alright. So here I repeat, how you say, which will be the content of today's video, that is the strategies that you need to adopt. Okay, that becomes more important than what you share. Therefore, adopting the proper strategy of answering makes all the difference between success and failure. Okay. Now let us go into some of the well accepted strategies that one need to adopt in answering in a GD session. Sorry, in a interview session, right? Now, first impression lasts long. The saying goes, it applies to every situation, every context, mind you, right? So, in a answering strategy also, before you actually start responding, okay, you have to make a first impression, okay, about you, So, in interview, often the opinion about a candidate is formed in the first few minutes based on your appearance, your punctuality and your demeanor, right? Now what is the demeanor means? Demeanor actually refers to your outward behavior, and this includes the way you stand, the way you talk, the way you make your facial expressions. All these goes to determine your positive demeanor. So be sure of dressing professionally, very essential, right? Then comes arriving punctually on time. At least you must reach your venue of interview 10 minutes before. Okay, maintain always a smiling face. Okay, nobody wants to see a stony face, right? Expressionless face, what we mean. Then continue always to maintain eye contact with the person whom you are meeting, okay, the panelist. Now eye contact doesn't mean only you are talking to one, right? You maintain, if that's a panel interview, obviously you need to maintain your eye contact with each and every member, right? Now you have to demonstrate some enthusiasm, right? Then offer your introduction very clearly, very briefly, okay? Now greet each of the members of the panel, not only the person who is seated in the center. Obviously the person who sits in the center, right, he or she is the chairperson, right? So all these you must do in order to make a first positive impression, right? Then next we go to, the second element of our strategy should be focus on concise, honest and positive answers. Now when I say concise, honest and positive answers, so obviously you have to quantify, what your achievements are, what your competencies are, okay? So for instance, let's take one, increasing efficiency of your team member where you have already worked or in your college, right? So simply saying I increased the efficiency or I made my team more efficient won't do. You have to quantify. What you have to say? I increased the efficiency of my team members by 15%. I reduced the unit cost by say rupees 2000 per unit. Similarly, you can also state that I was a team member who was able to reduce the wastage that my unit was generating by say 35%. Okay? Suppose you are a designer of your website of your organization that you are into. So you have to state it this way. I was able to manage increasing the website traffic by 30%. This is how you can quantify and give a focused answer, very concise, honest and positive way. Okay. Now as I said, let's see one more example here. Now instead of saying simply I improved the marketing campaign performance and was able to make the unit successful, that don't give much sense to the interviewers. So instead what you should say, I redesigned the marketing campaign which resulted in a 25% increase in the qualified leads, right? A 15% increase in the social media engagement within the say a stipulated period of 1 month. Now this gives a very focused answer, concise answer, and it will be much more impressive when you state these. Okay. Now you can use these metrics of your regarding what you are claiming. For instance, what are the metrics that can be quantified that will give you an authenticity of your response? What are they? It could be in terms of money saved, revenue generated, budget managed. Okay. Now what I am pointing out, I am giving you a list. If you are already into job, right, or you took up any project as a part of the assignment in the organization itself, right, you can link all these to that also, not necessarily only when you are working in the organizations. Let's say time is the next common matrix that you can use. I reduce the project time, increase the productivity, I enhance the ranking of my organization or my unit as the topmost performer, say in the industry. Okay. Then you can also indicate regarding the scale in which you have performed. Let's say like this: number of clients you have served, size of the data sheets or handle that you have handled. Now, third element of your strategy in answering in a job interview is attentiveness. Okay. Now, what this strategy suggests: listen to the question very carefully. Don't start answering before the question is completed by the interviewers. Never interrupt when the interviewer is speaking, right? Now, if you are unclear about what the question is, it is better always to ask clarification. Okay. But then you have to do it, with a sense of apology. Okay. You can state it this way: would you kindly repeat the question, sir or ma'am? Okay. But then, as I said, you have to be very attentive and you have to listen very carefully the question wait for the interviewer to complete the question and don't immediately start, jumping into answering just because you feel that you know the answers, right? Next thing I would suggest is, take a strategic pause. What's a pause? A stop, some short what? Gap. Okay? Particularly this strategy you can adopt when the questions are little bit difficult or complex. Okay? Right? Now, a short pause is always advisable. How can you do it? You can take a sip of water in between, right? Or simply hold your silence for say 5 to 10 seconds just to gather your thoughts. Okay? Next, what I would say is, use filler phrases. Now, previous one was strategic pause, I said. So, as a part of that strategy, you can also use some filler phrases. What are they? That why it is done? It is done to, buy valuable time without creating any disruptions. So, how can you do it very tactfully? Right? You are buying time. So, maybe you say something like this. That's a great question, sir. Okay? So, in between what are you doing? You are also thinking, how do I respond to? Okay? Or you can say that, sir, it was a wonderful question. It was a very great question. Let me think about that for a moment or so. Okay? But do not use meaningless words or sounds. Okay? Such as, these are also gap filler, mind you. Likewise, like, this is what some people do, these are also gap fillers, but don't do this. You can use some phrases. Okay? Just the way I gave you one or two, right? Because if you are using this type of words or sounds, that you will be projecting yourself as a very unprofessional, and you never like to do that in a job interview. Next, as I said, ask clarification. This would be a part of your strategy. As I said, if the question is not clear, okay, after the interview I have put the questions, right? It is very perfect if you ask very politely to repeat or sometimes rephrase that. Okay? It is better to ask more information rather than to go for a wild guess and in the process committing some silly errors. Okay? Now, sentences that you may use in order to ask for clarification. Let's see how you can ask for clarification or request for clarification. You are not asking, you are requesting for clarification because you have not been able to grasp very clearly what the interview was asking. So, this could be sentence. Could you please clarify what you mean by what? Suffix, something like that. QWL. QWL stands for quality of work life. Okay? Or WLB, work life balance. Those people who are into HR, they must be knowing all these. But in case you are unable to decode these abbreviations, it is always advisable you can ask for clarification in this way. Or your sentence could be like this: just to make sure I understand correctly, are you asking about the quality of life? Something like that. See the voice, how submissively you are asking for the clarification. Could you give me an example of what you mean by something, Suppose the person has said headstrong. You are unable to know what is headstrong, who is headstrong, is it positive, is it negative? So, what you are doing is you are asking, could you please give an example of what exactly you mean by a person who is headstrong? Okay, but then remember not to over ask, right? Avoid asking clarification after every single question that the interviewer is asking. It will give an impression that you are just not listening, you are not attending. So, don't do it too often. Next is pay attention to your own body language. We communicate through non-verbally also, right? Because first impression that you create about in the minds of your interviewer is through your body language before you start speaking, right? So, because interviewers will observe how you are sitting, whether you are mirroring the body language, okay, of the interviewers. Your crossed arms and legs, they are not advisable. Don't do it. It will sound as if you are very, it will look as if you are very defensive, right? Maintain a upright posture, okay? Your spine should be straight, your shoulder back, and feet should be flat on the floor, right? Avoid slouching. Slouching is not permitted. Slouching can signal a lack of confidence and also a lack of interest. So, a slight lean forward this way, towards the interviewer, that will show that you are engaged, you are having interest, and also you are very attentive, trying to understand, trying to listen to the interviewers, Next thing you should do as a part of your, answering strategy is, be very accurate always. Okay? Accurate means what? Pay attention to the dates you are, quoting, persons or names you are quoting, places, or a piece of statistics that you are sharing. For example, it's, recently US administration has imposed 50% tariff on India. Okay? But then this 50% includes 25% as penalty for transaction with Russia, because we are buying crude from Russia, right? So, do not quote a wrong figure in percentage. It is 50%, it is 25% is the tariff, and another 25% is a penalty tariff they have imposed on us. Okay? Similarly, when you are quoting about the country's GDP, what is GDP? Gross domestic product. NDP, net domestic product. Okay, like GSDP, PCI, that is per capita income, your export and import figures, FDI inflow. What is FDI? Foreign direct investments. So, when you are sharing all these, be very particular about that you are accurate. Okay? And if you don't know, better don't quote these figures, right? Now, next thing as a part of strategy that I would suggest you, be very brief. Brevity is the next advice as a part of the interview answering strategy, my dear students. What is that? Be short and concise. Okay? Now, here is, a quote by Thomas Jefferson, the third president of USA, what he had said. I read it for you. The most valuable of all talents is that of never using two words when one will do. If you can manage with one, no need of using two words. Be brief and to the point, even if it's a open-ended questions. Don't go on elaborating so in a detail. Do not give a long rambling answer, mind you, which are maybe irrelevant. Let the interviewer ask for more detail, then you can share. Okay? Now, let us take an example where the question is, or rather the response is towards the expected salary. The interviewers are asking this gentleman who is appearing in the interview, what the salary you are expected? What is your expected salary? Now, see, there are two ways to answer. One is very brief, concise, to the point. The other one is very wordy, right? Very lengthy one. The first one is the C. What the person is saying. My salary expectation is between 75,000 to 85,000 per month, but I am flexible. I can also consider things like bonuses and other benefits. I am also open to discussion, right, about the career growth within the company that could compensate for a slightly lower initial salary that will be acceptable to me. See, this very wordy and very lengthy answer is giving to the question of what is your expected salary, right? But a very smarter way to say the very same thing, very briefly, how do you say that? I am looking for a role in the range of rupees 80,000 to 85,000, but I am open to discussion or negotiation, right? Now this way, you are also making the same answer is almost the same, but it is very brief to the point. Interviewers don't have patience to listen to a very lengthy paragraph to these very short questions. What salary you are expecting? Next thing is remain focused always. What is focused? I think I discussed it earlier also. Okay, that means don't ever give information which is not asked for, right? More specific the answer, more convinced the interviewers are expected to be, right? If the question is how do you deal with a difficult customer, no need for you to mention how did you deal with your previous boss whom you have projected as if a very rude and arrogant person, right? Because the question is about a difficult customer. They are not asking about the previous boss. So remain focused in your answer, and as such, you should never speak negative about your previous organization or your previous boss, right? Then comes speak very clearly. Okay, that means what? The voice, your accent, your intonation, right, should be very perfect. What is that? Speak slowly and that with appropriate pause in between. Don't vomit out at a stage, just because you know the answer. Don't get excited. Okay, so bring clarity and build your image through your voice, accent and intonation. Neither speak too fast nor speak too slow, because the saying goes either extreme is bad. Okay, and also don't take too long a pause. You yourself get disconnected and also your listeners, that means the interviewers. Ensure that you are audible and understandable. Regulate your pitch actually by considering how far you are seated from your interviewers. Are they close enough? No need of raising a voice. But if they are at a little bit distance, so you have to regulate your pitch and your voice. Next is be flexible, right? See, ideally every employer will be wanting to take in those people who are flexible in their approach, their attitude, and certainly not those who are rigid. So be flexible is the next part of your strategy should be. Suppose they are asking you regarding your willingness to be relocated to a place other than that was posted in the job ad, right? So what should be your answer? If you are rigid, then say, no sir, I am not going to go anywhere else, I want to be in my home, I am homesick. That will give an impression that you are homesick, right? So that may go against you. So what should you say? In the interest of the organization, I would be willing to work in a different location if the situation so demands. See the way he is projecting that he is a very flexible person, right? Then comes politeness as a part of your strategy while answering in an interview, in a QA session. Be very polite. Don't be dogmatic or unfriendly. Now when I am using the dogmatic, what do you mean, right? Now dogmatic is a person who refuses to consider others' perspective, whatever evidence they are sharing. Okay, so the advice is do not be a close-minded candidate ever. Be receptive to the new ideas or a different opinion if the interviewers are sharing with you. Interviewers at times they correct you, right, during the interview. Accept, acknowledge and thank them. Show your gratitude very often. Do not ever argue. This is very important, right? You may disagree with the interviewers, but do not push things too hard. What does it mean? You have to respect the interviewers, never offend by disagreeing in a very arrogant way. No, what you say, sir, I don't agree to you, right? I know different things, right? I have a strong preparation. I have referred to so many journals. I don't agree with you. No, you can beg to differ, right? But you have to do it very apologetically, very, never be aggressive. What I mean to say, when you are arguing, obviously you are becoming aggressive. So one has to be assertive but not aggressive. Okay, let us take an example. Suppose the interviewers ask you, which game is more strenuous? You have mentioned in your resume that you play certain game and you claim that that is the game where you get the maximum of physical exercises. But your interviewers don't agree to. No, they say no. Football is not the most strenuous game. Rather, basketball or hockey is the most strenuous game that gives you a maximum of physical exercises. Okay, so don't go on arguing with them. No, sir, no, this, that. Don't do it. Push it too hard. What you can state it, you can say this way: we all have our likes and preferences, sir. I do respect your views. You may be right. Next thing is, be and look interested always in the interview. Okay, your face must generate some energy that you are genuinely interested for the job you are appearing your interview. Okay, it is said, and it's true also, interviewers prefer less qualified but more interested candidates rather than more qualified and less interested ones. So how interested you are, they will be also assessing simultaneously while your question answer session is on. That depends on your voice, your facial expressions, okay, everything. So maintain eye contact, as I said earlier. Always keep a smiling face. Okay, show some energy on your face. Occasionally appreciate good questions. Okay, thank interviewers for correcting you after any wrong answer which you have given to them. You may take down some notes, okay, of the corrected answers. That will show how professional you are, how genuinely you are interested to acquire and enhance your knowledge base, right? So carrying a small, let's say, writing pad and with a pen is always desirable, and take down these if at all some things are pointing out to you. Never ever try to bluff. See, that irritates the interviewers maximum. If you are bluffing, then take it for granted you are rejected. There can be situations where you are not sure of the answer. So what should you do? Be honest. It is always acceptable to say that, sorry sir, sorry ma'am, I don't know, right? But you could also say like this: I don't know the exact answer to that, but I am very eager to learn, right? That, projecting your curiosity. It's a very positive quality. But suppose you want to, you are not very sure of, but you feel that you know the answer, it could go either way. Maybe you are right, maybe you are wrong. So it is best, advisable is, you take the permission. What should you do then? Sir or ma'am, I am not too sure, but if you allow me to guess, because you are already taking a permission, after that if you commit error also, it won't go that serious, right? So you can say, I am not too sure, but ma'am or sir, if you allow me to guess, right? This way you can also try to answer to a question where you are not sure of. But then it should be intelligent guess, not a wild guess. Next thing is, use always a star method to respond. What is that? Particularly when it's a behavioral question, you should adopt this strategy, or rather this method called STAR. STAR, it stands for situation, task, action and results. Okay? So, in the situation, what you do? Describe the context of the event. In the task, what you do? Explain the goal and responsibility that you had to handle in that situation. A, that is action, share the specific steps or action you took to solve the problem, or in that situation whatever it is. And finally R is results, So share the outcome of your action. So this way it will be more convincing rather than simply stating that I was successful, I did that, I didn't do that, you know. So use more often the STAR methods in answering or responding, particularly to the behavioral question. You know, that is a particular type of question they ask, that is called BEI or behavioral event interview. And finally, you know, I should say this, as a part of your strategy, stay calm, particularly when they are asking you some stress questions. That is a, you know, type of question which is called stress interview. What they do? The interviewers intentionally create a very stressful or high pressure environment and try to assess your ability to handle the pressure and or any difficult situation that you are likely to face, you know. See, organizational life is not always a bed of roses. There could be some situation where, you know, feel very stressed. So therefore, they try to test how good you are in maintaining your emotions, right? Right? Sometimes the question they ask is like this: why should we believe anything you say? Right? Looking at you, staring at you. What makes you think that you are the best fit for this role? So the ball is thrown into your court instead of they assessing you whether you are good enough or not. Next is, are you sure you can handle this job? Looking at you this way, are you sure you can handle this job? Sometimes they, you know, ignore you altogether, you know, they don't look at you. So these are some of the situations where you can panic. But don't lose your, you know, emotion, don't be scared of, okay? Stay calm, stay composed, right? Show resilience and adaptability. And throughout this session, you know, as I said earlier, keep smiling. Even if you feel butterfly in your stomach, because, you know, experts say that you need not display what exactly you feel. Your displayed emotions and your felt emotions need not always synchronize, they need not meet, mind you. Sometimes you are nervous inside, but don't ever bring that on your face. So these are some of the, you know, strategies that I feel, you know, you can adopt, you can practice and adopt them in your practical, you know, when you face an interview, right? So with this, I stop it here. In the next, we'll be going into different aspects of job interview. Maybe we'll go into, you know, right approach, what are the different types of interview questions that you are likely to be asked, how do you respond to those questions in the next video. Till then, thank you.